people, and welcome back to the channel. You know the man, Coach Mike James. You know the brand, PNZ Life Coaching. And I'm back again with another Impactful Conversations. I'm so excited for any of you that haven't watched an Impactful Conversation, a Black Business Booming, any of my interviews, go back and do it. It's amazing. I have amazing guests on here, and today is no different. But before we get started, you stop, don't go anywhere. Subscribe, share, tell someone, comment, connect with all of my past interviewees, and also today, and tell a friend. Comment below and let me know what you want to see on this channel. If you have someone that can be on Impactful Conversations or Black Business Booming, let me know. I appreciate you. So I'm always talking about connections. I'm thankful for Impactful Conversations and my YouTube channel just helping me connect with so many beautiful people and beautiful souls. And I'm lucky and blessed today that I have someone that I was able to be on your show. So I'm just so appreciative and thankful for you being on today on Impactful Conversations. So I'm going to let you have the pleasure to introduce yourself, tell everybody a little bit about you, and any other information that you want before we jump into it.
Hello, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. I appreciate so much being on your show now that I have the honor of having you on mine. My name's Nicole Bloom, for anybody who doesn't yet know me. I am a life coach, I'm a poet, I'm a coffee and nature enthusiast, and I just believe in connecting in any way possible that puts human minds and human hearts together.
Love that. That right there is so perfect. We can really just cut right there and say, okay, now go follow her, because the way you describe yourself is perfect. Being connected with you for these last few months is exactly what I see. That I'm a coffee guy, but the coffee enthusiast, it's next level when you're following Nicole, people, because just I've never seen pouring a cup of coffee just bring you in so much. We were talking before we started recording. Your walk, skips, in nature just invites you in, and so the way you describe yourself, that was beautiful, that was perfect. And one of the reasons we're sitting here, when I was on your show, which we'll talk about, I was like, yeah, gotta run this back, gotta be on Impactful Conversations, and immediately we both said can't wait. So awesome having you, Nicole. I truly appreciate this. And of course, Impactful Conversations is where we go a little bit deeper into impact and community and all those beautiful things. So let's start where we start with everybody. Tell us about young Nicole. Tell us about like your background and upbringing and some impactful moments for you growing up. Tell us a little bit about young Nicole.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I do appreciate the connection as well. For these last few months, they have been amazing, a light in my life. And, the more lights that come into people and each other's lives, the bigger this light in the world gets. So I'm so appreciative of that. And now young Nicole, oh boy, where do I start? Young Nicole was not your typical youngin. I was I don't like to use stereotypes, but I own this stereotype because I wouldn't describe myself in any other way. I was so nerdy and I loved it. I was, always very careful with my decisions since young. I was always very aware of consequences. And growing up, my parents were divorced since I was one. So I had my father's side and my mother's side. And one side was very strict, and the other side was very nonchalant. One side struggled financially, and the other side was very comfortable. So I got to experience the strict and the struggle, and I got to experience the comfortable and the chill growing up. And I bounced between both. And I was already an observer from so young on how people treated me differently depending on the way they lived their lives.
Yeah.
So I see how struggles can put pressure on relationships and how struggles can put pressure on parenting. And then I see when you're more comfortable or you have a more calm approach, how I would tend to listen more or I would
Hmm.
tend to connect more. And how I just noticed how much force creates resistance. And I noticed how much, that space to fail and that space to be vulnerable made me find my way faster.
Mm.
And now here's the crazy thing. They both loved me just as much. They both loved themselves just as much, but it was two completely different approaches. And I think that from young was where my mind started thinking behavior wise, started thinking about, how even with the struggle side and even with the comfortable side, I still felt love. I still saw happiness. I still saw sadness. It rains on the struggle and it rains on the comfortable.
Yeah.
And so I saw, what's the biggest difference between both sides of this, right? What's the difference between this kind of life and that kind of life? So growing up, I didn't feel that pressure to have to chase anything. I kind of felt like I've seen it all, kind of thing. I know what it's like to be in a small house and not have enough food. And I know what it's like to be in a big house and have too much food and
Right.
eat some of it to school and share with my friends. So I felt that. And then kind of going through that, I think one of the biggest factors besides how my parents, raised me in completely different environments, I would say the other biggest aspect of what made me who I am today was my sensitivity. And the reason is because my sensitivity led me to being bullied.
Mm.
And when I say bullied, I don't mean bullied like, oh, someone called you a name once and you got in a silly fight and you became a victim. Even then, I don't see myself as a victim. I see myself as a victor. But I experienced every single day bullying, people pushing you down, people slapping me after school, people passing me notes that they want to hurt me, people, doing nasty, throwing food at me in lunch while I sat by myself. Those kind of things, like movie-like moments and I never told a soul. I was never woe is me. I was never a fighter. I always tried to just stay below the surface. And I always had such a natural, bright light. I always had so much love to give. I was always on such a higher frequency. And learning about human behavior now, back, I don't know if that intimidated people. I don't know if
Mm.
people had to dim that light because they were scared of it. And because I was not a chameleon, I refused to partake in anything that wasn't me. I refused to make bad decisions or do things that made me uncomfortable. So I held my ground. And if that left me with no friends, so be it, you know? And so that was tough. I look back and those weakest moments that I felt turned out to be my strongest. And I
Wow.
think that's what made me who I am today.
That, in hearing that, I think that's amazing because a lot of times people will look at someone and automatically judge what they think their background is, right? Or it's hard for people also to kind of put themselves in someone else's experience, to have that empathy when they haven't experienced things. And I like how you said movie like scenarios, right? Because people, we can watch movies and think, well, that'll never happen, because you think about where you were. It's like, well, no, that'll never happen for me. And I think most of my classmates from high school can vouch for this. I was I, I was so not a fighter. I was so not a fighter. I was always an athlete, but I was always friendly with everyone. I didn't have too many enemies besides maybe that bully that wanted to try me and found out the hard way that it was a bad idea, I was, if anything, a bully to the bullies because I could not stand to see, that child who sat by themselves, to be messed with or picked with. So, people have a hard time sometimes understanding, well, why or how did that happen? How did this happen? But also in that, I made a video. Maybe it was last week. I'm not sure. I can't keep up with my YouTube, my videos sometimes. But it was a YouTube, Nicole, on choosing your happiness because I say happiness comes from a happening, and that joy is something on the inside. And so I instruct people in this scenario: choose something to bring you happiness. Choose something to have joy. And in your case, you chose. I love that you said I never did the woe is me. I still had that light to shine, and it shows how much all of your experience brought you to, again, like you said, the person you are today. So when you look back at young Nicole and those things and growing up how you did, and having those two polarities, right, and how you grew up, what were some of the impactful moments that you carry to this day? What were some impactful moments for you as when you were
Oh,
growing up?
sure, absolutely. So, and a side note that I forgot to throw in there is that I grew up in private. I switched to public for 4 years, went back to private.
Okay.
That gave me big insight. That gave me insight in thinking all those about how environments are different, but I got to see how they're all the same also. So that was also what helped me see those two perspectives. And I got bullied in all of them. So it didn't matter. But um, I would say that impactful moments were when I rose for other people.
Mm,
But I never rose for myself. I never had the need. For me, I knew it was lack of understanding, even from a young age. I knew it. And what was impactful for me was all those times where I wasn't with anyone, I was put in a position to get to know myself. I was put in a position to appreciate the trees because all I had to look at was the trees. I was
yeah.
able to appreciate the wind because it wasn't whispers of people's manipulation or people trying to tell me who to be and what to do. I had so much time to myself that I got to really hear myself and hear what direction I wanted to go and think things over and talk things over with myself. So, of course, you have a friend or two. I'm not going to say I never had nobody. There was times where I didn't, but we all have somebody who we can relate to. And I think that taught me how to have a small circle from the get-go. Because when people are popular and it's awesome and they're giving and they kind of get sucked into this expectation of having so much to do for other people, and we bring that into adulthood where, oh, but I have to be at this event and that person's life because every single person's a part of me, but then you have no time for yourself. So I learned that was impactful to me to say I'm okay with one or two people in my life. I don't need the whole school to like me. I felt so much love those few times that I had few friends that it was everything to me. And when I would see that person get, so I'm a lover, not a fighter, but I'll fight for the ones I love. And I never
Yeah.
knew that. I never knew that till it challenged me to do it. You could pick on me all you want, but if I saw someone picking on someone I loved, that's when the courage would come out and the voice would come out. And that's when I started learning that I had a little bit of power, but I wanted to use it wisely.
Yeah.
I did not want to use that power for bad. I wanted to use it for good. And so I kept that in me. Once I realized that I kind of had that power to stand up, I didn't want to let it change me. So I stayed with my light dimmed, unless I felt safe or unless I felt, I'd share it with family. But I think that was impactful moments, learning from young to have a small circle, learning to appreciate being alone. And and I always stood my ground, always, because my morals and my beliefs were utmost priority, no matter what. I never wanted the world to take away who I was. If the world did something to hurt me, I would be who I was twice as hard, 3 times as hard. I would always double up to make sure they didn't take. I would turn my pain into gain every single time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And again, I love these interviews and these conversations that I have because it gives you the behind the scenes, the brick and mortar, so to speak, of a person that you've been connected with. And it just makes sense when you hear the building blocks, so to speak. It makes sense showing up as the person you are, right? Hearing those experiences. So thinking about that, I love how you talked about the biggest part of that impact was appreciating being alone and being able to, and when now this is where maybe someone watching that grew up with me would say, well, yeah, because I was an athlete, so I was in the forefront. But I love that you said, I was a lover, not a fighter, but I will fight for someone I love. That was me. I was fortunate now that I was the youngest of a lot of children. So by the time I came along, it was like, hey, don't mess with Mike because there's a whole lot of older Mikes out there. But when you said that, Nicole, like, do you have siblings? Do you have any siblings?
I do.
Okay.
I have an
Where
older
do you
sibling.
fall? Are you the youngest?
This is really interesting. I have an older sister by a year and 2 months. And I have 2 younger siblings by 6 and 10 years.
Okay.
So I only ever experienced school with my older sister. And here comes the movie moment again. Are you ready? My sister was the most popular kid in school, and no one knew we were sisters.
Wow.
And she was so cool that she couldn't risk people realizing she was my sister.
Wow.
That sibling rivalry. Oh, it was real. It was real. It was, like the movies. But, I'll never forget that one time before she had left school while I was still, in middle school, in the public school. I'll never forget that one time where she caught me crying. Like, she caught me down. I would never show anyone, because I saw my sister go through her own struggles and I saw my parents go through their struggles. So I never wanted to burden anyone. I suppressed a lot. And I'll never forget that one time where she caught me broken, and she stood up that next day for me. She let the school know, and nobody picked on me those last 2 weeks of school. I was like, where were you on the first day?
Where were you the rest of this time?
If only I knew you really loved me.
Yeah.
And actually, something too I want to throw in there that's like a key factor. The biggest impact for me, as I just mentioned, this is important. I suppressed. I didn't share. I should have. I look back and I would have, but I turned to journaling. One day I had so many emotions about why didn't the world love me? Why didn't the world accept me? Why am I not good enough, pretty enough, smart enough? I was going through so much emotionally because I was so sensitive, more sensitive than anyone in my family. Nobody understood my sensitivity. They didn't understand how to hear it, how to understand it. They would comfort it. My mother and father would try, but they really didn't understand. They're still new at parenting. And one day I just got a paper and a pen and I wrote all my feelings. And I felt the most beautiful release. I felt the most beautiful weight off my shoulders. I crumbled the paper, I ripped it, I threw it away. And ever since that first day, I would keep the good, write, and throw away the bad. And I have journals and journals, and it actually turned into poetry. The good kind of started finding this rhythm and finding this dance with what I wanted to feel. All my poetry is what I wished for myself. All of it. I wish to be special. I wish to be beautiful. I wish to be kind. I wish to make people not want to be mean to other people. I wish to. And I look back on my life, I have those writings. Years later, I stumbled upon it and I got everything and more that I ever wrote down. and more.
Wow.
I didn't realize it was a type of manifestation or a type of meditation and I always sought to writing. And to this day, writing is a very big part of me, very big.
Yeah, I love that. It's for anyone who follows me on a regular, my clients, anyone that will watch this knows that that's one of the first steps I tell people after you think about what's going on. I went bowling with a friend last night, and that was one of the things we were just talking, just had a birthday, and she was talking about this and that. I was like, I looked, it was that pause moment, like looking like, okay, give me that big brother advice. And I said one thing, have you wrote it down? And she was like, okay. She already knew what I meant because I say that so
Totally.
often, because that's where you really get that flow. It's one thing to think about what's going on and to suppress, right? What you said, suppress it.
Totally.
But once you write it out, I tell people so many times when you write it out and you see the words, sometimes as you're reading it back, what you wrote, you're already giving yourself the solution and you're solving that because you're thinking like, wait a minute. Okay, either this is not as bad as I thought as I'm writing it out, or
Yeah,
I need a little more help with this. You begin to get that flow. And now it's getting the kink out of that water hose that was just stopped up and you're wondering why
totally.
no water is coming out. And so you
Yeah.
get that flow. So I think that's so important, writing it out. So this has already been an impactful conversation,
I love
just with the gems that you're dropping. So now, adult Nicole, as you think about impact today as an adult and everything that you do, what does impact mean for you as an adult?
impact for me as an adult. I learned this in recent years. I'd say in less than 2 years, I've learned this. I used to think that impacting others as an adult was giving everything I had to the last drop, because that's what I was used to. I was used to giving, pleasing, and I would see how I would feel depleted because I thought that being a giver and having an impact on life was giving no questions asked, was giving even if it was the shirt on my back.
Hmm.
But I realized that I need to grow to give. I can't give all the fruits in my garden and all the seeds and have nothing else to grow and have nothing else to
Hmm.
give. So I can give what I bloom. I can give it and I can share it and I can help pollinate kindness in the world. But I need to continue to hold the seeds that are true to me. I need time to tender my garden. I need time to water myself and to help myself to grow. So I realized that helping the world the best that I can is helping myself the best that I can. Because the better that I become, the more that I have to share, the more that I have to give. So it's having a boundary around my garden where I can take care of the weeds of thought or people that may come in. I can make sure that the emotional weather that I'm going through, I have time to protect my garden of beliefs and thoughts. So there's so much that goes into taking care of ourselves physically and emotionally. And I realized that. I realized, wow, the more that I do something for me, that goes outward 3 times more than just giving outward and then trying to pick the pieces of what's left for me.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
so that I think has been my biggest realization on impact. To impact is to grow myself to help others grow.
Yeah. That is amazing because I tell people sometimes the most selfless thing you can do is to be selfish, meaning you can't pour from an empty pitcher. When you
Totally.
are running on empty, how can you fill someone else up? But that's what we want, right? That human experience tells us help, help, help everybody, help everybody. And
Mhm.
the last thing we do is go on that journey of self-discovery. And it's when we're, as you said, depleted. And it's like, oh, it's so hard, it's so hard. You're fighting something that you haven't done in so long. So now that's why that journey is so hard to break through. You beautifully illustrated like a garden, right? A garden, and put in that the boundaries around that for the people who come in and blooming, what you can bring out. So that made me think about where I wanted to go with the next question. It made me think about community, right? And how you can be of best benefit to your community around you. So what does community mean to you, Nicole? What does community mean to you in terms of your life and what you do on a regular basis?
Absolutely. I believe that community is connection, and I believe that connection is the pulse of life.
Mm,
I think community is what makes us alive because we are nothing without each other. A tree cannot grow without soil, without water,
hmm.
without sun. So it's that interaction and that relationship that we have with community, with humanity, with people different than us. What is the most beautiful gardens that you've ever seen? Diverse gardens, gardens of diversity, diverse thoughts, diverse perspectives, diverse communities. So to me, community is the pulse of life. What keeps, the purpose of life beating is community. We can live a life by ourselves, but it's very hard to bloom that way. You'll grow and you'll stay, and it's kind of like you don't give yourself enough room to grow. Other people hold answers we look for. Other people hold memories and experiences that we are after, that we're on a quest for. And so it's all community. It all ties into connection in my belief.
That's awesome. I tell people when I'm doing a virtual event, speaking or listening, I'm in the audience, my interviews, I'm always taking notes because I know I'm going to receive something. It's certain things I want to hold on to. And I've never heard that, community and connection is the pulse of life. That's amazing because, again, I love the word pulse of life because do you need it? No. But is there any movement to what you do? Is there any impact to what you do without connections? As we talked about, even how we connected, just those connections, it makes you bloom, it makes you grow, it makes you find out different ideas and thoughts and cultures and different things. So I love that quote. I don't know if that's your original thought, but I wrote it
Yeah.
down. I'm gonna I'm gonna reference
Thank
that a lot because
you.
it's awesome. Connection is the pulse of life.
I
So
appreciate
as you think about that and the connections, community, we've talked about impact as an adult and you growing up. So what are you doing as an adult professionally in your life to enhance that, to enhance community and impact? What are you doing and let me just say this too, to back up all the way
it.
to the beginning, your intro. I say this often and I'll say it every time. I'm biased. I'm biased to coaches because I'm a coach. And I just think that the coaching model is an amazing thing because it helps you, it leads you to asking the right coaches, the right questions. The Coaching Habit, the book by Michael Bunye Stenye. I think I'm saying his name right, but just asking the right questions and thinking about things from that kind of outside looking in
Yeah.
and not what people most of the time expect. Most of the time people expect you to tell me what to do, tell me what to do. But when you get the right question asked to you, it's like,
And they
oh,
know.
yes. I was like, oh yeah, I knew that. So I'm a little biased. So what are you doing in your professional life that's enhancing that impact and community?
Absolutely. So I have done one-on-one, since I started. And very few times I have been asked to come speak to groups at businesses, at people's homes for a gathering right before a special dinner or right before a special intimate gathering. They'll come and ask me to speak to them and to inspire them and to get their minds and their hearts open right before a special night. And so I find myself doing that more and more, doing groups more and more, because one is so important because it helps a person to feel safe. It helps them to feel vulnerable. It helps them to feel connection, very
Hmm.
deep and authentic connection. For those who have done a couple one-on-ones or maybe done it for a long time, when you enter a group that is linking their breathing, linking their thoughts, linking their vulnerability, there is such an amplification of the possibility of change in a group that I say, I gotta try this. I gotta reach bigger levels of connection and bigger levels of inspiration. So I've been trying, and it's been a growing experience to get into groups for businesses, for schools. I've even been brought in once or twice to speak to a class on a certain subject that has to do with confidence or has to do with emotions or has to do with the way that we think. So that's what I want to do. I want to get to a level where I can, now this is big level stuff I'm talking about. This is my 10-year goal. I'm hoping to one day have a safe space that I can host where half of the studio is couches all together and a speaking area, and the other half there's a barista making you coffee and there's plants and just bringing nature in as much as possible. That's my goal. My goal is to not just find it or offer it. My goal is to create it. My goal is to make it available all day, every day for whoever needs it or wants it or just wants to plant a seed of change and be around people who can help each other bloom.
That's awesome. When you were explaining that how it looks, of course, visual. I'm visualizing walking into this space, and I don't know, it just popped in my mind, the Bloom Incubator. Just having the couches and the coffee and just nature. And it
So
goes back
cool.
again, people, it goes back to your intro, like how you explain yourself. And that's why I said that. I said, listen, we can cut it right there. And that's you in a nutshell based on our connection from the last few months. Nature, coffee, just that space. And I love that safe place and space for people to be able to bloom is awesome. So that's what popped in my head, the Bloom Incubator. And I'm like, yep, I'm visiting that
You need to
place.
come to the
I'm visiting
opening.
that place. Yeah, right. Like, listen, that's beautiful. I Another reason why I love, now I don't know if I'm just getting lucky, where that opportunity meets preparation and connecting with all the right people. But in all the interviews that I do, whether it's Impactful Conversations, Black Business Boom, and they're they're people with ideas and things they want to do, things that they want to see to really enhance community and what they do. And at the core of all of that is really to help people. I haven't had one person to answer, with my black business booming, what's the most satisfying part? Oh, it's all about the money, or I did it. It's the money is nice, but I want to help people. Seeing that smile, seeing that, getting that testimonial from a client, or seeing the reason why I started this was to help my spouse or my child or a neighbor had this going on, that's amazing. And I always say, I'm going to come back to all these interviews because when your space opens, I can say, you know what, Nicole said it on this day, this time, and look at it now. That goes back to those connections, right, Nicole? It's the connections where different things and conversations you have, when you see them happen and it comes into fruition, it gives you a little bit more energy to keep going and doing what you do.
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
talked about community and groups and just reaching more people. One way you're doing that, let's talk about Humans Bloom. Um, and again, one of the ways we connected, I was able to be on your show. So tell me about that. Tell people about what that is and how it got started.
Absolutely. So, and I am very happy we're going to go over this because I want the audience, everyone to see how life happens and how nothing's perfect And, Humans Bloom has always been my personal philosophy. It's always been a way of life for me. And so I've always had, we bloom mentality since I was young, since my poetry, since, my self discovery. And it wasn't until recent years that I started putting it out there and sharing it with the world. And what triggered me to, or inspired me to want to record my conversations and try and make it a show was every time I would finish with a client on a call, on a jog, at a coffee shop, wherever we were, they'd say, man, I wish I could show my niece what you just said, or I wish I could show my husband what you just said, but the way you said it, because I'm going to go home and say it, but it may not sound the same. So I said, in what way would I record this and share it without it being so personal, without, what could I do? And then I thought, well, maybe I can make it a talk show, because and I thought of talk show thinking of that future creative space to host events, to just hang out and have coffee and talk if it's not an event, a place where people can go and speak about life with each other. And it's like that place where you're going to have an impactful conversation,
Right.
not anything, business like or anything like that. So I just started recording and I thought, let's make this fun. Let's do it in person. Now, here is where I'm at with the show today. My goal is to have it in person. My goal is to have it in a studio, to, continue it as as kind of like a topping of what I do, or kind of as another part of growth for me, is that my main focus, but it is on somewhat of a pause. And here's why. It is very hard to film in Miami for a few reasons. And so people hear the struggles of having a new idea, and I jump on it because you need to jump on inspiration right away so that you make it real and you don't let that seed pass by. You want to plant the seed as fast while it's still in your hand, because if not, it blows away and you're like, oh my God.
Right.
So there was a little bit of, a struggle with finding location where it's not hot, where it's not raining, there's not people around that are very loud. And you have to really get permits, and you have to pay big bucks just to film 10 minutes, I've asked. And it got very hard. So I said, you know what? I kind of started feeling that I was coming to a place of force and coming to a path of resistance. And I said, you know what? If something doesn't come to my mind, I'm going to leave it where it is. And when I'm re-inspired, I'll continue. But I said, it's just an extra in my life. It's a passion in my life. And I'm okay with saying I had 13 amazing guests, and maybe 14 is in 3 months or 6 or a year. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with slow motion multitasking. I don't have to do everything right now. I could do what is in front of my heart and on my mind, and that is what is going to bloom. Not everything at once, because different plants, different flowers, everything in nature needs a different type of care. And my show has already grown, and it's already something real. It's something I can come back to and grow. And I'm okay if however it looks to everybody, it doesn't bother me. It's something special to me. It's something that was fun. And so that's where I'm at right now. I'm just still focusing on absorbing life, absorbing books and conversations, and growing the human experience more than anything. That to me is number one, the human experience before business, before my ego tells me, oh, but people are going to think you fail. Ego is real in everybody, but it's a conscious choice to say, thank you for loving me enough to send me a message, but this is what I want to focus on. This is what I want to feel, and this is what's more important to me.
Wow. I love it because getting to that place where you say, I'm okay with where I am, whether it's the pause or the growth, wherever it is, because when you put your authentic and unapologetic self out, the people that needs that message will come to you. So your show and the dynamic what's the word I'm looking for? The differences or the diversity in the guests that you've had on there and their stories that they bring to the table, I think is awesome. And I'm so grateful that we were able to do it in the virtual setting. And then even what you did with it, it was amazing. I was like, this is production right here. I love it. So I'm just thankful for that we had an opportunity to connect to that and look forward to and can't wait for part two where we are in person, even follow up to this to Humans Bloom. So I encourage people to just check out the all the episodes that you've done already and just your channel in general. That listen, if you like life, if you appreciate love, coffee, nature, connections, that the space to just enjoy and to grow, you need to connect with Coach Nicole. So of course, I'm definitely going to make sure all the information is in the description below. So you talked about one thing, Nicole, that I got excited. I put a name to it because that's what came to my head. But on top of that, or out around or outside of that space that you want to eventually create, that kind of long-term goal, on your journey right now and what you're doing, you even gave an update on Humans Bloom and the show and where it is right now. So in thinking of this, you even mentioned about getting more into groups and the speaking. What's next for Coach Nicole Bloom, Humans Bloom? What's next? What's on your radar? Because I know it's awesome because you have that mind to do more, to help more. So what's next for you?
Absolutely. And I am very happy that we're going to kind of bring our blooming to this note, because it's very exciting. And another reason too why I was okay with having the show where it is, I have been very heavy in meditating. I never understood the power of meditating because I would say, "Oh, but I'm so agile and I move a lot. I don't know how I
Mm,
could still for so long." And I know some of us
yeah.
can. And I started explaining to a friend who meditates, I've been looking out my window, holding my coffee, really intensely focusing my future and really intensely speaking to every cell in my body and the wind and the this. And I go, and man, the things that I'm finding, the things I'm hearing in myself, the way that I'm speaking to people is even more than I've ever been. And my friend looks at me and she goes, "That's meditation. I've been telling you to do that forever."
Right.
And I was like, "Oh, I thought that it had to be in a certain way and in a certain and
Mm-hmm.
say certain things." She goes, "No." She's like, "There's guided if you don't know how to do it, but everyone can do it different. You can meditate while you're biking. You can meditate while you're driving. You can meditate while you're petting your animal." So getting into meditation most recently, maybe like 4 months ago, right before the show was having its challenges, I just having that meditation, absorbing as many books as I can. I said, you know what, if I'm not interviewing people, but I'm still coaching it in my daily life, what can I do? I said, you know what, let me continue to absorb. Let me grab things that spark my interest, even without purpose. Let me start doing things that are meaningless, that are silly, that are, and that's the dance of life.
Dancing with a stranger in the street.
That is,
It's awesome.
yes.
So awesome.
Yes. That's where again, the pulse of life comes from. And so in this meditation, in absorbing life again in different ways, kind of revisiting my strengths, but in new ways, I said, I want to discover something new in me. And that's what I was focused on. And I'm going to tease you a little bit because while I'm not going to say it just yet, I'm about to in a few days, I realized my very existence. I realized what it is that I have been my whole life. And it's similar to a coach, but it's something huge to me. And I cannot wait to step into the light of what I have discovered is my very being. And I thought I had it all figured out. I thought, okay, this is it. And that just goes to show at any stage in life, the more questions you ask, the more answers you will receive. The more
Yeah.
that you want to deepen who you are, you just gotta swim. We just gotta continue swimming into new thinking, into new communities, into new gardens. I mean, you can't swim into a garden, but you know what I'm saying? So
Exactly.
we just have to plant new seeds, and we just have to continue to grow and say, I've always felt so happy with where I am right now. I wouldn't change it for the world, but I always knew that there was something I was missing, something
Mhm.
in myself, something that ties in the poet in me, the coach in me, the nature in me, the light in me that I've always had. Where does this come from? What is it? And I finally have realized. And so that's also why I've been a little more quiet on the platforms, because I have just been rearranging my approach and how I'm going to continue to bloom, which still everyone can still bloom with me in this area of self-development and self-love and love for life. So I'm about to come out with that soon. And I thought of you and a few others that I cannot wait to talk to about it and see what you have
Yes.
to say.
I am so excited. We're just gonna run this continuous drum roll. I look forward to it. Listen, whatever it is, Nicole, I know it's going to be awesome just because of your approach, right? And your not only your approach, but your passion and um, your your objective to why you do things, right? Finding that why behind what you do. So even in the way you talk about being a light, right? The way you lit up when you were thinking about it. That smile. So I'm excited to hear it. I can't wait to hear it. I'm grateful already for what you've done and the impact that you've made even since we've been connected. So Nicole, take this time. Anything you want to leave the people with, any last words, any ways, and also just tell the people how they can connect with you or where you would like them to connect with you to find out more about Coach Nicole Bloom, Humans Bloom. You know what, Nicole? Let me tell you this too. I get so jealous sometimes that like this positive jealousy for friends and associates and connections and family that have these awesome names that they can do the word play with. It's like, man, I have just the most plain name, Mike James. It's like, I don't know, but Humans Bloom, just the name. So, any last words for the people?
Well, before I give the last word for the people, I do want to say that I am a lover of bouncing off ideas and going deeper into what you can bloom into. So if ever you want to kind of put our heads together and think about what it is that you might be connected with through your name, through your heart, through what you do, I think to have a personal recognition and a personal name, I think is very beautiful. It's very black and white. It's very sun and moon, stars and night. It's very, you can see all of its essence. So
Mhm.
I've always loved the name. And that's just something that's always come to me, is that Humans Bloom ideology. But it's not to say that you could discover something that rings true to you. You could discover something that really zones in on your essence as a person, as a human, that you could use too. So just putting that
So
out
true.
there, putting that
So
out
true.
there. We don't have to stay attached to the very first thing we find ourselves in, right?
Right.
And for everyone else out there too, I would say that, okay, I would say that every experience in life is a seed, and that you don't have to plant every single one. There are seeds of beauty, seeds of love, seeds of ideas, and there are seeds of darkness, seeds of pain, seeds of ego. And the more that we are aware of what seed that experience could be for us. What will I grow from burying this within me? What we hold in ourselves, we grow. What you bury, you grow. So we can let it go in the wind, or we can forgive, or we can do so many things that can help us decide what it is we want to become. Now, what we'll get, what will become in life? What do I want to grow to be? You could be a flower, you can be an oak tree, you can be anything in this life. And don't fear the pain, don't fear the confusions in life, because all of that is a part of growth, all of it. That's how I would say.
Yes. That is the mic drop moment right there. Boom. Nicole, tell everybody how they can connect with you and follow you and find out more about what you do.
Yes, absolutely. So my platform on social media, on Twitter, on LinkedIn is Humans Bloom. My email is humansbloom@outlook.com. Reach out, say hello. I love to hear from you, to see the way that everybody lives and kind of share the way that I live too, for sake of community. You know, that's what it's all about. And just say hello or ask questions, or I'm open to anything, any creative conversation, any impactful conversation, or even just to show each other some love as much as possible. So I'm here.
Awesome. Nicole, thank you so much for your time today, and for having this impactful conversation with me. I appreciate you. Of course, we will be in touch on
Yes.
all the awesome things we both have going on. It's been a pleasure knowing you again and connecting with you these last few months, and just sharing that space of light, light and love. I tell people all the time, I say it often, so it's out there. So I put it out in the universe as often as I can, especially anytime I'm on a platform that leaves that print, that print forever. It'll be right here on the interwebs. So I tell people all the time, my personal life's mission is to share my light, love, and positivity with as many people as I can in the time and space that I have. So my business, my YouTube channel, my speaking engagements, my social media, I want it all to reflect that light, love, or positivity. And if it doesn't, then again, that's seeds I choose not to plant and bloom. So I love the way you put that. Every experience in life is a seed, and they don't all have to be planted. That's words of the day, words for the month, the year. That's words for life right there, Coach Nicole. So thank you so much again for this. You are welcome. And thank you for everybody who's watched, listen, share, like, comment, make sure you connect with Coach Nicole. We appreciate it. And make sure that you subscribe, turn on that bell down there, over there, wherever it is, hit that bell so you get notifications on when I drop an interview or my motivational videos, my dubs of the day. We appreciate you all, and we'll see y'all next time on another impactful conversations. Peace.
Bye.